The last time Anna saw her brother, David, he was laughing, his eyes sparkling under the golden California sun. That image, frozen in time, became the silent torture of a decade. It was a crisp spring Friday, the start of a hiking and camping weekend David had meticulously planned in Big Basin Redwood State Park, a sanctuary of towering redwood trees and winding trails. The air carried the intoxicating scent of pine and damp earth, a fragrance that now evoked a sharp pang of pain and an unbearable longing. No one could have imagined that the key to his disappearance would not lie in forgotten clues or reluctant witnesses, but rather in a single microscopic drop of blood, a minuscule cellular fragment, and the astonishing, almost miraculous, advancement of scientific discovery. Prepare yourself for a story that defies both hope and despair, where a sister's relentless perseverance and groundbreaking technological innovation converge to unravel a mystery that had long seemed utterly unsolvable. This is not just a story of a missing person. It's a chilling testament to the relentless pursuit of truth, the enduring power of a sister's love, and how the cutting edge of forensic technology can pierce through years of silence, bringing answers where only questions once existed. If you think disappearances are just newspaper headlines, fleeting tragedies quickly forgotten, wait until you hear this. What unfolded that fateful weekend, and the subsequent decade of agonizing uncertainty, fundamentally changed everything Anna believed about personal safety, about the efficacy of justice, and about the very possibility of finding true closure after an unbearable, inexplicable loss. David Miller, 28 years old, was the embodiment of boundless energy and infectious optimism. A brilliant software engineer by profession, he possessed an insatiable passion for the great outdoors, viewing the world through lenses of adventure and unceasing discovery. His eyes, a piercing shade of blue, were perpetually fixed on the distant horizon, always seeking the next exhilarating challenge, the next formidable mountain to conquer, the next untamed trail to explore. He was Anna's younger brother, 4 years her junior, and undeniably the vibrant light of their close-knit family. His laughter was a powerful, contagious force, capable of dispelling even the thickest clouds of melancholy. David and Anna shared an unbreakable bond, a connection forged in countless hours of childhood games, whispered secrets exchanged in the dead of night, and unwavering mutual support through every triumph and tribulation. He was the kind of person who effortlessly made friends, radiating an aura of genuine kindness and an insatiable curiosity about every facet of the world around him. David had been planning this particular camping trip for months, envisioning it as a much-needed escape from the relentless, demanding routine of his life in bustling San Francisco. It was meant to be a chance to deeply reconnect with the raw beauty of nature and with his own inner self, a period of quiet reflection amidst the grandeur of ancient trees. He had enthusiastically invited Anna to join him, but she, unfortunately, was overwhelmed with pressing work deadlines and had to reluctantly decline. It was a decision that would haunt her, a silent, gnawing regret for a seemingly interminable number of years. Big Basin Redwood State Park, with its majestic millennia-old redwood trees stretching impossibly high towards the heavens, was the quintessential backdrop for David's planned adventure. He intended to embark on the renowned Skyline to the Sea Trail, an ambitious multi-day journey that would lead him through incredibly dense forests and isolated, serene valleys, ultimately culminating at the dramatic, windswept Pacific coast. David was an experienced, highly skilled hiker, always meticulously prepared for any eventuality. He carried the right top-of-the-line equipment, possessed detailed topographical maps, and had a clear, well-thought-out route plan etched in his mind. He had sent Anna a quick text message that Friday afternoon, precisely at 4:32 p.m., accompanied by a photo of his tent already pitched, the late afternoon sun filtering in ethereal beams through the colossal tree canopies. "Paradise, Sar. Signal's weak, but I'm good. I'll call you when I'm off the trail." That brief, casual message was the very last communication Anna would ever receive from her beloved brother. That seemingly idyllic weekend, brimming with the promise of natural beauty and personal rejuvenation, would tragically transform into an enduring nightmare, a relentless ordeal that would stretch on for years, defying all logic and slowly eroding the very foundations of hope for the entire Miller family. The routine of the Miller family had been that of any typical loving American middle-class household. devoted, caring parents, children who were actively pursuing their dreams, cherished Sunday dinners, and joyous holiday gatherings. David's sudden, inexplicable disappearance tore this carefully woven tapestry of normalcy into irreparable shreds. Their mother, Eleanor, a woman of unwavering, profound faith, visibly began to waste away, her daily prayers transforming into desperate, heart-wrenching pleas for her lost son's return. Their father, Richard, a practical, reserved man by nature, plunged into a frantic, all-consuming search, draining their life savings to hire private investigators, tirelessly distributing countless flyers adorned with David's smiling photograph across the entire state of California. Anna, for her part, became the unyielding emotional bedrock of the family, the fragile bridge precariously spanning the vast chasm between fragile hope and crushing despair. She meticulously organized volunteer search parties, created dedicated pages on every major social media platform, and maintained constant, relentless contact with the police department, stubbornly refusing to accept the agonizing notion that David had simply vanished into thin air. David's absence was a gaping black hole in everyone's lives, relentlessly sucking away all joy, leaving behind an aching, unbearable void that seemed to grow larger with each passing day. The first clue, or more accurately, the profound absence of any meaningful clue, was what terrorized the family most profoundly. David's car, a reliable gray SUV, was discovered parked in the designated park lot, untouched and seemingly undisturbed. Inside, his smaller day-hiking backpack and a few personal items lay exactly where he had left them. This indicated unequivocally that he had indeed arrived at the park and had successfully started his planned hike. But crucially, he had never returned. The local police department, under the direction of the seasoned detective John Carter, immediately launched an intensive, large-scale search operation. Highly trained K-9 units were swiftly mobilized, their keen noses pressed to the ground. Dedicated search and rescue teams meticulously scoured the dense forest, their voices echoing through the ancient trees, and helicopters tirelessly crisscrossed the skies above, their rotors beating a rhythmic, anxious thrum as they hovered over the towering canopies. But the sheer, overwhelming vastness of the park, with its labyrinthine trails, treacherous, steep ravines, and incredibly dense, unforgiving vegetation, seemed to effortlessly swallow any potential trace of David. There were no discernible signs of struggle, no personal belongings carelessly left behind on the trail, no unusual footprints to analyze. It was as if David had simply evaporated into the very air, leaving absolutely no physical evidence of his presence or his fate. The utter lack of any concrete physical evidence was maddening, a psychological torment that gnawed at the family's sanity. How could a person, a vibrant, living human being, simply vanish into thin air, without leaving the slightest trace, without a single clue to their whereabouts? The silence of the forest was deafening, a mocking echo of their unanswered pleas. The day of the disappearance, a seemingly innocuous, sun-drenched Saturday that had promised nothing but adventure and natural beauty, swiftly became the grim ground zero of the Miller family's tragedy. David was supposed to have called Anna by late afternoon, a routine check-in after his first day of hiking, but his phone remained stubbornly silent. As Saturday bled into Sunday, Anna's initial low-grade anxiety rapidly escalated into full-blown, gut-wrenching panic. She frantically called the park rangers, then the local police, then every hospital within a 100-mile radius, but no one, absolutely no one, had any news of David. The initial reactions from the family were a chaotic whirlwind of disbelief and outright denial, swiftly followed by a desperate, all-consuming search that consumed every fiber of their being, every waking moment. Anna and her parents immediately drove to the park, their hearts pounding with a terrifying mixture of fragile hope and cold dread. They joined the official search teams, their voices hoarse from repeatedly shouting David's name, their desperate cries echoing eerily through the ancient redwood groves. But only the vast, indifferent silence of the forest answered their pleas. Subtle contradictions and strange behaviors, though initially dismissed, began to surface, like unsettling whispers from the shadows. A park ranger, who had briefly seen David in the parking lot on Friday, casually mentioned having noticed a scruffy-looking man, his baseball cap pulled low over his eyes, unusually observing the parked cars with an unsettling intensity. He seemed out of place, the ranger commented, not attaching much importance to it at the time. Not your typical hiker type. Another witness, a family camping near the trailhead entrance, reported hearing a muffled scream emanating from the dense forest on Friday night, around 8:02 p.m. They had initially dismissed it, attributing it to some wild animal or perhaps noisy fellow campers. It sounded like a cry of surprise, not pain. The woman recounted, her voice still tinged with uncertainty. The police duly recorded these snippets of information, but without a body, without a clear crime scene, they remained mere disconnected fragments, tantalizing, but ultimately unhelpful. The frustrating lack of concrete clues and the perplexing absence of any apparent motive led Detective Carter to a painful, albeit logical conclusion. The most probable hypothesis was that David had suffered a fatal accident somewhere on the sprawling trail, perhaps a fall into a remote, hidden ravine, and his body, tragically, would likely never be found. The family, however, stubbornly refused to accept this grim explanation. They felt, deep in their bones, an undeniable conviction that something far more sinister had transpired. The ancient forest seemed to guard a dark, terrible secret, and the oppressive silence of the towering redwoods was deafening, a constant reminder of their unanswered questions. What was the forest hiding, and why was it so stubbornly silent? David Miller's case, devoid of any new leads, and with all exhaustive search efforts officially concluded, was formally filed as a cold case after a grueling 6 months. For the Miller family, this decision felt like a death sentence for their dwindling hope. The agonizing pain of uncertainty, the crushing weight of not knowing, was a burden far heavier, far more excruciating, than even the certainty of death itself. Anna, however, with an unyielding spirit, flatly refused to give up. She immersed herself in the world of missing persons cases, devouring books, attending every conference she could find, and actively connecting with other families who were living through the exact same unbearable nightmare. She maintained persistent, almost obsessive contact with Detective Carter, relentlessly pleading for any new line of investigation, any emerging technology that might offer a glimmer of hope. With each passing year, the raw grief subtly intertwined with a growing, corrosive frustration. The photographs of David adorning the walls of their home seemed to grow more and more distant, like fading ghosts of a happy past that would never, ever return. Years bled into a decade, and the life of the Miller family transformed into a suspended state of perpetual mourning. 10 years after David's disappearance, Anna received a phone call that would irrevocably alter the course of everything. It wasn't from Detective Carter, who had long since retired, but from Detective Emily Hayes, a sharp, ambitious young detective who had recently taken charge of the department's cold cases unit. Detective Hayes had been profoundly inspired by a recent documentary detailing the groundbreaking use of forensic genealogy in previously unsolved cases, a revolutionary technology that allowed investigators to identify individuals by comparing their DNA samples with publicly available genealogical databases, such as those used for ancestry research. She had made the bold decision to reopen David Miller's case, recognizing it as one of the most intriguing and emotionally painful unsolved mysteries in the region. Her plan was to resubmit the few scant physical pieces of evidence collected at the time for reanalysis using this powerful new technique, a last-ditch effort to breathe new life into a dead end. The sole remaining piece of physical evidence from David's case was a tiny bloodstain, no larger than a coin, discovered on a crushed fern leaf, approximately 3.7 miles from the main trail, in an area that had been extensively, yet fruitlessly, searched during the initial investigation. The stain was so minuscule and degraded that it had initially been dismissed as animal blood, or simply considered too contaminated to be useful. Furthermore, the DNA technology available at the time was simply not advanced enough to extract a complete, viable profile from such a compromised sample. But Dr. Evelyn Reed, a renowned forensic geneticist, a leading expert in analyzing ancient and degraded samples, was at the forefront of the team tasked with re-examining this crucial piece of evidence. She was a methodical and brilliant scientist, with an unwavering passion for both scientific discovery and the pursuit of justice. Anna's hope, which had dwindled to a mere flicker over the agonizing years, suddenly reignited with an almost painful, blinding intensity. The air crackled with anticipation. What the forensic team discovered next would not only turn the case completely upside down, but would also rip open old wounds, revealing a truth far darker and more horrifying than anyone could have possibly imagined. A truth that had lain buried for over a decade. The meticulous analysis of the minuscule bloodstain, a task that required the utmost precision and cutting-edge laboratory techniques, finally yielded a complete male DNA profile. Dr. Reed, working tirelessly with her dedicated team, then submitted this newly acquired profile to several publicly accessible genealogical databases, a revolutionary technique that had, in recent years, completely transformed the landscape of cold case investigations. The initial search did not produce a direct, immediate match, but it did identify several distant relatives who had voluntarily submitted their DNA to these popular ancestry services. From these distant relatives, Dr. Reed's team embarked on the painstaking process of constructing a reverse genealogical family tree, a meticulous and incredibly time-consuming endeavor that demanded immense patience, unparalleled expertise, and an unwavering commitment to detail. They painstakingly traced lineages, cross-referenced information from countless public records, including old obituaries and census data, working tirelessly, often late into the night, to identify the unknown individual whose DNA was now speaking volumes. Each branching line of the family tree represented a new potential clue, each newly discovered name a fresh possibility, a step closer to the truth. After months of arduous, painstaking work, the complex genealogical family tree began to converge, narrowing down to a single chilling name: Robert Bobby Jenkins. Jenkins was a 42-year-old man with a documented history of petty crimes, including minor assault and drug possession charges. He lived a marginalized existence in a rural community approximately 50 miles from Big Basin Redwoods State Park. Crucially, he had never once been considered a suspect in David Miller's case, as he had no apparent connection to the victim and was not on the police's initial list of persons of interest at the time of the disappearance. Detective Hayes, armed with the compelling DNA profile and the positive identification of Jenkins, swiftly obtained a court order to collect a fresh DNA sample directly from him. The tension in the forensic laboratory was palpable, almost suffocating, as the final comparison results slowly populated on the screen. The match was unequivocal. It was exact. The DNA from the tiny bloodstain on the fern leaf, the silent witness to a decade-old tragedy, belonged, beyond any shadow of a doubt, to Robert Jenkins. DNA, it was proven once again, does not lie. It whispers the truth. Jenkins was the assailant was profoundly shocking, the revelation that brought disbelief through the investigative team. He was, in essence, a wolf in sheep's clothing, a predator who had skillfully lurked in the shadows, hidden in plain sight. The investigation immediately deepened, expanding its scope dramatically. The police meticulously uncovered that Jenkins possessed a disturbing history of impulsive, uncontrolled violence, often exacerbated by the influence of illicit drugs. He was known to frequently wander through rural areas and state parks, actively seeking opportunities for petty theft, or, more disturbingly, for random, unprovoked confrontations. The motive for the brutal attack on David Miller appeared to be chillingly random and purely sadistic. Jenkins had simply been in the forest that fateful day, likely searching for something to steal or someone to assault. He stumbled upon David, a seemingly innocent and carefree young man, enjoying the tranquility of nature, and the latent violence within Jenkins erupted without warning. The tiny bloodstain on the fern leaf, a direct result of a minor injury Jenkins sustained during his struggle with David, became his ultimate undoing, a minuscule, overlooked detail that, against all odds, became the irrefutable key to unraveling a decade-old mystery, a silent testament to a hidden crime. Armed with the undeniable DNA evidence, the police confronted Jenkins. He initially vehemently denied any involvement, attempting to maintain a facade of innocence. However, when faced with the overwhelming, irrefutable scientific evidence, his carefully constructed pretense crumbled completely. He confessed in chilling, detached detail to the murder of David Miller. The story he recounted was brutal, cold, and devoid of any discernible remorse. He admitted to approaching David on the trail, aggressively demanding money. David, caught completely by surprise and understandably terrified, had instinctively resisted the mugging attempt. Jenkins, in a sudden, violent fit of rage and heavily under the influence of drugs, had then attacked David with a large rock, brutally bludgeoning him to death. He then callously dragged David's lifeless body to a remote, secluded area deep within the forest and hastily buried it in a shallow grave, attempting to conceal it with layers of leaves and branches, desperately hoping that the body would never be discovered. What he failed to realize, what he couldn't possibly have known, was that a single, microscopic drop of his own blood, left behind on that unassuming fern leaf, would ultimately become his downfall. A silent, patient witness that would wait for over a decade to finally speak its truth, to expose the horrific crime he had committed. The most impactful additional revelation emerged directly from Jenkins's chilling confession. He chillingly admitted to having committed other violent crimes in the surrounding region, including 2 previously unsolved assaults on hikers in nearby parks, cases that the police had, out of necessity, filed as cold cases due to a profound lack of actionable evidence. Jenkins's DNA, now firmly entered into the National Criminal Database, allowed the police to definitively connect these other heinous crimes directly to him, finally bringing long-awaited justice to other victims and their anguished families. David Miller's case, which had initially seemed like an isolated, inexplicable tragedy, was now revealed to be part of a terrifying pattern of violence, exposing a serial predator who had been operating in the shadows, hidden in plain sight, for far too long. The groundbreaking DNA technology not only definitively solved David's disappearance, but also, in a ripple effect, unraveled a series of other violent crimes, bringing a profound sense of justice and renewed safety to the wider community. Jenkins's hidden motivation was revealed to be pure sadism and an insatiable desire for power and control over his helpless victims, all fueled by his escalating substance abuse. He viewed the vast, untamed forest as his personal hunting ground, and unsuspecting hikers as nothing more than easy prey. The sheer cruelty and chilling lack of remorse displayed by Jenkins were truly terrifying, serving as a stark, unsettling reminder of the profound darkness that can, at times, inhabit the human heart. The news of Robert Jenkins's arrest and the subsequent discovery of David Miller's body hit the Miller family like a crashing tidal wave, an overwhelming, paradoxical mixture of profound relief and agonizing pain. David's body was recovered from the precise location indicated by Jenkins, approximately 4.1 miles from where the crucial bloodstain was found, in a densely wooded and extremely difficult-to-access area. While the recovery of David's remains brought a much-needed physical closure, the raw pain of their loss was tragically renewed with the undeniable confirmation of the brutal nature of his death. The family was finally able to hold a proper funeral, a sacred rite of passage that had been cruelly denied to them for an agonizingly long time. They gathered, not to mourn a disappearance, but to grieve a life brutally stolen and to celebrate the cherished memory of David. The tears shed were tears of profound sadness, but also, strangely, tears of a bittersweet relief. They finally had answers. They finally had justice. Robert Jenkins was swiftly brought to trial and subsequently convicted of first-degree murder, receiving multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole. The DNA evidence presented was utterly irrefutable, leaving no room for doubt, and his extensive history of prior violent crimes solidified the prosecution's airtight case. The validation of Anna's tireless efforts was immense, almost overwhelming. Her decade of relentless struggle, her unwavering refusal to ever give up, her profound faith in the power of science, it had all, finally, been worth it. She had successfully kept David's memory alive, a beacon of hope, and, against all odds, had finally brought justice for him and for Jenkins's other innocent victims. The community, which had closely followed David's agonizing case for years, felt a complex mix of horror at the revelations and immense gratitude for the resolution. The pervasive fear that had long lingered over California's beloved hiking trails began to dissipate, slowly replaced by a renewed sense of security. Knowing that a dangerous predator had been removed from their midst, and that the trails they cherished were safer once more. The case of David Miller, once a symbol of agonizing uncertainty, now stood as a powerful testament to the relentless march of scientific progress and the unwavering dedication of those who refused to let a life be forgotten. For Anna, the resolution brought a complex tapestry of emotions. The initial euphoria of Jenkins's arrest and the discovery of David's body was quickly tempered by the profound grief that accompanied the finality of death. For a decade, David had existed in a liminal space, neither truly alive nor definitively gone. Now, the truth, however brutal, offered a path to a different kind of healing. Anna found herself navigating a landscape of sorrow she had never truly allowed herself to fully inhabit. The funeral, a somber yet cathartic event, allowed the family to collectively mourn, to share stories, and to finally say goodbye. David's parents, Eleanor and Richard, found a fragile peace in burying their son with dignity, a peace that had eluded them for so long. The weight of the unknown, that crushing burden, had been lifted, replaced by the heavy but manageable burden of grief. Anna, however, did not simply retreat into her sorrow. The experience had forged in her an unshakable resolve, a fierce determination to ensure that no other family would suffer the same prolonged agony of uncertainty if science could offer a solution. She began to channel her pain into purpose. She started by connecting with other families who had loved ones missing, sharing her story, and offering a beacon of hope where often only despair existed. Her voice, once tremulous with grief, grew strong and resonant, advocating for the widespread adoption of forensic genealogical DNA testing in cold cases across the nation. She worked closely with Detective Hayes, who had become a trusted confidant and friend, and with Dr. Reed, the brilliant geneticist whose work had been so pivotal. Together, they formed an unlikely but powerful alliance. The grieving sister, the dedicated detective, and the pioneering scientist, united by a common goal. Anna became a frequent speaker at law enforcement conferences, forensic science symposiums, and victim advocacy events. She recounted David's story with raw honesty, detailing the years of torment and the eventual triumph of technology. She emphasized the critical importance of preserving even the smallest, most seemingly insignificant pieces of evidence in cold cases, arguing passionately that what might be useless today could be the key to justice tomorrow. Her advocacy was instrumental in pushing for legislative changes that would streamline the process for law enforcement agencies to access and utilize public genealogical databases, always with strict ethical guidelines and privacy safeguards in place. She understood the concerns about privacy, but argued vehemently that the potential for solving heinous crimes and bringing closure to countless families far outweighed the risks, especially when conducted responsibly and with proper oversight. The impact of David Miller's case reverberated far beyond the Miller family and the state of California. It became a landmark example, a powerful case study taught in forensic science programs and discussed in law enforcement academies. Other cold cases, some decades old, were reopened, their dusty evidence boxes pulled from storage, re-examined under the new lens of forensic genealogy. The whisper of DNA, as the media began to call it, was solving cases that had long been deemed unsolvable, bringing names to unidentified remains and justice to forgotten victims. The success rate was astonishing, transforming the landscape of criminal investigation and offering a glimmer of hope to families who had long since given up. Detective Emily Hayes, whose initial decision to reopen David's case had been met with some skepticism within her department, saw her reputation soar. She became a leading voice in advocating for increased funding and training for cold case units, emphasizing the return on investment in terms of justice served and public trust restored. Her methodical approach, combined with her openness to innovative techniques, made her a respected figure in the law enforcement community. She often spoke of Anna's unwavering spirit, crediting her as the silent force that propelled the investigation forward, even when it seemed hopeless. The bond between the detective and the victim's sister became a poignant example of how collaboration, empathy, and shared purpose could lead to extraordinary outcomes. Dr. Evelyn Reed, the geneticist, found herself at the forefront of a scientific revolution. Her laboratory became a hub for advanced forensic genealogical research, attracting brilliant minds from around the world. She continued to refine the techniques, pushing the boundaries of what was possible with degraded and traced DNA samples. Her work, once confined to academic journals and specialized conferences, gained widespread public recognition, demystifying the complex science for a broader audience. She often spoke of the profound ethical responsibilities that came with such powerful technology, advocating for careful consideration of privacy and consent, while simultaneously championing its immense potential for good. For Dr. Reed, every solved case was not just a scientific triumph, but a deeply personal victory, a testament to the power of science to bring peace to those who had suffered unimaginable loss. The Miller family, though, forever changed by David's disappearance and death, began to rebuild their lives. The void left by David was still there, a permanent scar, but it was no longer a gaping wound. They found solace in supporting each other, in celebrating David's life rather than just mourning his absence. Anna's parents, Eleanor and Richard, found strength in Anna's advocacy, seeing David's legacy live on through her tireless efforts. They joined her at some events, sharing their own perspectives on the agonizing weight and the bittersweet relief of closure. Their home, once filled with the heavy silence of unanswered questions, now held a different kind of quiet, a quiet of remembrance, of healing, and of enduring love. They learned that closure wasn't about forgetting, but about integrating the loss into their lives, finding a way to carry their grief while still moving forward. It was a long, arduous journey, filled with setbacks and moments of renewed pain, but they walked together, stronger for having faced the unimaginable. The community of Big Basin Redwood State Park, and indeed the wider Californian public, experienced a collective sigh of relief. The fear that had subtly permeated the trails, the unspoken question of what truly happened to David Miller, had finally been answered. Park rangers reported a renewed sense of confidence among hikers, and the number of visitors to the park, which had seen a dip after David's disappearance, slowly began to climb again. The redwoods, ancient and silent witnesses to so much, seemed to stand a little taller, their grandeur now intertwined with a story of human perseverance and scientific triumph. Interpretive signs were even considered for the park, subtly referencing the advancements in forensic science that had brought justice to a cold case, educating visitors about the hidden stories the landscape held and the modern tools used to uncover them. The case instilled a new level of trust in law enforcement and forensic science, demonstrating that even in the most baffling circumstances, the truth could eventually emerge. Anna's personal journey was perhaps the most profound. She had transformed from a grieving sister into a powerful advocate, finding meaning in her pain. She often reflected on the irony that David, with his love for technology, would have been fascinated by the very science that ultimately solved his case. She imagined him, with his brilliant mind and infectious curiosity, poring over the DNA sequences, marveling at the intricate patterns that held the key to his own fate. This thought brought a bittersweet smile to her face, a connection across the veil of time and loss. She understood that while the pain of losing David would always be a part of her, it no longer defined her entirely. Her life had expanded to encompass a new purpose, a mission to help others find the answers she had so desperately sought. She became a testament to the human spirit's capacity for resilience, for turning tragedy into a driving force for positive change. The legacy of David Miller was no longer solely one of a tragic disappearance. It became a narrative of hope, a story of how a single, seemingly insignificant piece of evidence combined with relentless human dedication and groundbreaking scientific innovation could pierce through the darkest veil of mystery. It underscored the profound truth that no one truly vanishes without a trace, that every life leaves an indelible mark, and that the pursuit of justice, however long and arduous, is always worthwhile. The whisper of DNA, a silent language spoken by the very building blocks of life, had finally given voice to the voiceless, bringing David home and offering a measure of peace to a family that had waited for far too long. His story served as a powerful reminder that even when hope seemed lost, the smallest detail, preserved and re-examined, with new eyes and new tools, could unlock the most profound truths. It was a story that resonated deeply with anyone who had ever faced an insurmountable challenge, a testament to the idea that perseverance, combined with innovation, can indeed move mountains, or in this case, uncover a hidden grave. This story is a profound testament to the unwavering power of hope and the incredible capacity of science to unravel the deepest mysteries. The disappearance of David Miller seemed like an unsolvable enigma, a haunting ghost that would forever torment his family. But, through the tireless perseverance of his sister and the revolutionary advancements in DNA technology, the truth finally emerged, bringing both justice and a painful, yet ultimately necessary, closure. May David's story serve as a powerful reminder that even in the darkest shadows, the light of truth can eventually shine through. It is a narrative that compels us to consider the hidden potential
Every piece of
within.
evidence, the silent stories waiting to be told by the very fabric of our being, the relentless pursuit of answers, fueled by love and propelled by scientific ingenuity, can indeed bridge the chasm of the unknown, bringing peace to those who have endured the unbearable weight of uncertainty. If this story has touched you, please consider sharing it to raise awareness about the transformative impact of DNA technology in solving cold cases and bringing justice to countless families. Like this video to honor the memory of David Miller and the tireless work of all those who dedicate their lives to seeking the truth. Comment below with your reflections on this powerful case and the ever-evolving role of science in the pursuit of justice. Let David's legacy be one of enduring hope and the triumph of truth. Note: this story is entirely fictional. Any resemblance to real persons, places, or events is purely coincidental.